You already know who it is. It's the King of Comebacks with 2Ks, here with my main man, Anthony J. Spencer. This is Creating Greatness Podcast. We're so happy to be here. We're so blessed to be talking to the growing number of spiritual warriors every day when I check it out, man. We are so appreciative. So if you like this content, do me one favor and one favor only. Share it with a friend, like it, follow it, and all that good stuff. I had a lot of topics planned for this day. If you listened to me and Tony's last episode, we were going to speak about the book of Job and transformation through suffering. Now, I may still get to this topic, but first, I want to talk about something to me at this time period to be of much more importance. Now, my friend Tony, he called me the other day, and the pre-conversation before the conversation was, well, you know what? I'm gonna let Tony tell it. I'm going to let Tony tell it. We're going to go ahead and riff from there, and it's going to be great.
Sure. Well, all right. I've been thinking about this for a while. It's been bugging me for a couple months probably, and it's because we're good friends. And the thing is with a friend, for me, or I guess anybody I meet, I want them to really know me as much as I can. And it's even embarrassing sometimes because I feel like sometimes I don't follow social norms about what to reveal about yourself and talk about in certain situations, because if I don't feel like they really know me, who I am, then I don't know if they really like me, or we really if our friendship is real, So it's one thing I have with my wife that is so important to me because, man, she knows everything about me. She knows all my bullshit. She knows how crazy I am, even more than I know myself. So I've been bugging me because I feel like I've been in some ways only being part of myself on this show. But now as I think about it, because I know how I am, a lot of times I say the same thing over like a cycle. Like last year, I might have said the same thing at some point. It won't surprise me because I find that I do that. I forget that I've confessed something or that I've revealed something and it's something that somebody already knows. But the motivation is that, hey, I want you to know me better, and for what it's worth, I really like being part of your show, and I like being part of the spiritual warriors and the people that are listening, and I want them to really know me too. And I don't want to be a disingenuous, unauthentic, however you want to say it. But it's a little bit, I'm vulnerable and I get nervous about revealing this stuff because I think it shows, I don't know what it really says about me. I'm going to let you judge that. And other people listen, they're more welcome to judge it because I don't really know what it says about me, that I feel like sometimes I'm of two minds about something. It's like when I'm thinking about something or I'm putting something in my life, it's got to be real to me. I got to wear it 100%. I got to know it. And I got to portray it. And it's got to affect every part of my life. So in this case, we're talking about my religious faith or what I believe about the big questions of life. I'm a very existential thinker. That's what I think about all the time. Who I am at the core. What am I? Do I have a soul? What's the meaning of life? Is there a meaning to life? What's the purpose? What's morality? What is really good? Is it objectively good? Or is it subjectively? Is what I believe? Can I know God completely? Can I know everything about him? And what it leads me to is sometimes I become what I think some people call dogmatic. I become very rigid because I want to know everything about everything because I don't want to miss something and I want to embody everything that I'm believing. So, over the years, I say, I've went back and forth between, me and my wife joke about it. I wrote this, on my porch, we have this wall we write things on just for the hell of it. We have a high scale we put on there. I got a big round circle about how crazy I am, all the different cycles I go through. It's like a clock. I'm spiritual, I'm dogmatic, I'm philosophical, I'm nihilistic. And she'll ask me, where are you on the clock? And that's who I am. But and it's also embarrassing because I don't want to portray that I believe these things about Jesus and I believe about Christianity and then I've studied and then it's meant so much to my life. And then to sit here and say the last 3 months, I've been really trying to embody and live as a person, I guess I'm like a materialist, somebody who believes that really all there is material things. Like our consciousness comes from our biological functions, that we've evolved from that, evolution, we've evolved as animals. That morality is only is based in a culture, and it's based on how people, how we've evolutionarily evolved to get along in society, and even our emotions are biological. We evolved emotions to learn how to, fear is good, avoiding predators. Worry, guilt is good because you're fitting in with your group, and shame is good because it drives you to, when you've hurt people or behaved in an antisocial way that hurts your group, I've been examining free will, that there is none, and that we're basically just creatures of our genetics and how we were raised, and we can only conceive of what we know, and so we do everything we do is really based on who we are before, and our genetics. So you don't make any spontaneous, real free will decisions, where we just make decisions based on what we know and who we were and how we were born and who we were born to. And I've been wrestling with these decisions and thinking about trying to understand where my emotions come from. But what I hate, man, what I fucking hate is, and I do it to myself, but I fucking hate it. I hate the fact that I constrain myself. There's a part of me that condemns me for being like this. I want to know something, and there's a part of me that agonizes over these things. It's not just, I love these pursuit of knowledge. I love learning things. I love growing. I love entertaining ideas. It's really kind of the meat and drink of my life. I listen to hours of podcasts and read these kind of books and listen to the scientists and listen to philosophers and listen to theologians. I'm constantly learning, but there's a part of me that condemns me for not being able to grab onto one thing and to go with it. You know what I mean? Never questioning it. Because even at my greatest moments of faith, studying theology and studying the Bible, even in my greatest moments, there were still questions that I could never really answer, and that haunt me, still to this day, about, why do people in other cultures not believe, and they were never raised to know about what I believe. So how can that be valid? And why do some people believe certain things are right because they were raised that way? And why is one religion better than another? What happens to people who really don't believe what I believe, the people I love? These things are really serious questions to me, really agonizing things. But I think that I'm 51 years old, and I feel like this is who I am. And actually, in the past, I heard somebody say recently about philosophers in the past, and one thing that was considered a laudable aspect of a philosopher was that they could embody ideas without judging them. Really put them on and really try to figure out what the world was like thinking in that worldview. And then they could put a different one on and think that way, and I was just watching a podcast with Jordan Peterson, who's a Jungian Christian, maybe, he's a Christian from a psychological perspective, I would say. And he had Richard Dawkins, which is a very famous evolutionary evolutionist. I believe he's a biologist. That he's a very famous atheist, and they've talked a couple times, and they have such different worldviews. But one thing Peterson was saying was that there's so many people that don't know both types of literature. They don't know. He knows the science. He's read all the evolutionary stuff, all the scientific stuff, talking about human beings as just material objects, animals, and looking at psychology. Some people don't even really think psychology is a science, but looking at that, and then also studying all the religious material, all the spiritual material, to try to put it all together to see what it means, And a lot of people haven't studied both areas, and I really love studying both, all the different literature. it just, there's a part of me that condemns me for it. And there's a part of me makes me feel like I must be fake. I must be a hypocrite or schizophrenic. How can you, how can you, I mean, how can I know that I, at one point, really taking such care and believing in religion and believing in Christianity and following it, studying it, and embodying it in my life, and then to really then go live as an Epicurean or look at life as an agnostic who doesn't acknowledge anything exists out. There's no real spiritual metaphysical reality to spirituality. I don't know how I do it. I'm not sure. I don't know about myself, and I don't know what it says about me, but that's who I am. And my wife loves me still. she still loves me. She said on a scale from today, she said on a scale from, I said, baby, you love me no matter what. I go, you do, don't you? And she goes, yeah. I go, even though I'm crazy, like really, like I'm not normal. And she's like, she goes, yeah. She goes, I go, oh, you really think I'm crazy, And she goes, well, on a wacky scale from 1 to 10, I say you're a 9, good 9, So I said, that's great. Wow. And you still love me? She goes, yeah. So I guess that's really important to me that she still loves me, even though, and I have some friends, one reason I was thinking of you and what really brought it to, I had to talk to you about it, because I feel like I was lying to you or not, and the people that listen to this show at some point, because I realized I've been studying the last two couple months probably, looking into so much philosophy about nihilism and Epicureanism and all these different areas that they have nothing to do with spiritual life in some ways. And I've been looking at them, and there was nobody I could call and talk to, because a lot of my closest friends from the past knew me when I was really into religion, really, and I could talk to them, and we could talk about the world and with a worldview with Christian worldview, but I can't really talk to them about this stuff. And not really because necessarily they would all reject me, which a lot of people wouldn't understand, and they'd be hurt probably, and which means something to me. But at the same time, when you have a certain one worldview, there's only certain answers you can come up with. There's really, when I was really studying theology and really into just seeing the world, and I wouldn't read any other books than the Bible. I wouldn't really even entertain certain notions, ideas, because I thought they were sinful. Because I figured if this is my worldview and this is what I believe, then why even entertain some of these ideas? So, and I would always feel so limited, so restricted. I don't know if there's anybody else out there, because a lot of people I feel, and people have said this to me, people that know me and my friends, they don't understand why I feel like this, why I care what other people think. My wife she is so strong and amazing woman. She is so, not just I respect her so much. She's so wise, and she has so many cool ideas that have nothing to do with society making her think a certain way. I mean, in some ways, she rejects this. She doesn't worry so much about what people think about her and what society says she should feel like and should act. She does what makes her happy, and she's honest to herself, and she doesn't understand like why I care so much about other people. If they don't like what I say, or they don't like that I go back and forth, she'd say, screw them. Then you don't need them in your life, and that's great. But to be honest, I do agonize over those things. It does bother me that other people think things about me, or what they think about me, or whether they think I'm consistent. And I am influenced by people in my life that I respect and that I think are wise. And I'm influenced by them. And sometimes it's hard for me to delineate between how much I want to be like them because I admire them and I respect them and I think their advice is good, versus who I am really, And so when I'm in a certain group of people, I can heavily be influenced, not necessarily in a negative way, but I can be taken over by their ideology because I like to be part of a group. That's the kind of person I am. I like to be part of the group. I like to signal that, hey, I'm here to support what everybody's doing. I'm part of the group. You can trust me. I'm gonna run with the ball. You know, I'm part of the team. I like that. I've always liked that. I've tried to fit in. I was thinking about, you can think endlessly of why I'm like this, or I can, you know, it's interesting to me. It's because it's my life. But, you know, when I was a kid, I was completely rejected because I had some real outward problems. I had a lot of mental issues, and they were really outwardly apparent to everyone because I used to pick my hair out and I made a lot of weird noises and I was super nervous, and I just had some real issues, and the kids were just like, "Oh, he's weak, you know, let's beat the crap out of him." And I just would run. I was running from people every day, and people were making fun of me and putting me down and calling me names, and I was rejected by most of my peer groups. And you know, I just grew up, you know, like wanting to die and hating myself and not knowing what was wrong with me and having all these problems and always searching for an answer. And I think that, you know, a part of that is part of why I like to try to fit in. It's so hard for me to stand up and say, this is what I want, or this is who I am, and wanting my own way is because, you know, I guess I feel that I'll be rejected, you know, unless I provide something in the relationship. You know, if I'm not a good friend, if I don't bring something to the friendship that is worthwhile, valuable, then why would they want to be my friend? If I don't, in my relationships, it's been like that too, you know, always thinking, well, if I take too much, or if I require too much care, then why would I want, you know, like when I got really sick and I almost died, you know, like 3 or 4 months ago, I thought, I can't work right now. My wife's had to take time off work. Everybody's looking at me, focused on me. It cost us all this money. And I thought, you know, there was parts of me, I thought maybe I should have died, you know. Maybe why I'm alive? I'm causing more suffering and pain for everybody than being alive, you know. That's how my brain thinks. That's, you know, that's so much, so deep in me. So I think it's hard for me to, you know, hard for me to say this is who I am, and well, if you don't like it, then that's too bad, you know. And there's a part, I can intellectually understand that, but there's a part of me that is very difficult for me to do that, and so it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing, but that's who I really am, you know. And so I guess that's what I wanted to tell you.
Well, that's it, man. I mean, you just did it. You say how difficult it was for you to put yourself out there in all of whatever you perceive it to be. I mean, I heard a lot of things, crazy and all these different things. You just did it. You just
Yeah.
did it. It's that simple. It's that simple. You just did it. So if you want to dig into it,
Yeah, we'll talk
first of
about it.
all, thank you for
Yeah.
sharing that. I know it wasn't easy for you, but like you said, it's not easy for me to do it. You just did it. You just did it, and everybody knows now, and we're still here. We still love you.
Well, let me ask you a question before you go first, because this is one thing you said, and I wanted to ask you about it.
Shoot.
Do you really think there's people? Do you really think there's people that are listening, or can you really understand not intellectually, but can you really understand what I'm saying? Like, or is it really foreign to you? Because, you know, when I did my podcast, that's what I was really looking at. There was a part of me that was looking at, are people as crazy as me? Or people really think like this? And are people suffering with these feelings? And when you're in your head, it's hard to think other people aren't. And, you know, you look at you, man, I mean, I'm not trying to blow smoke at you, but you don't seem like you suffer in this way. You seem to be more confident about who you are and what you're doing in your life. And I look to a lot of people, and they don't seem to be questioning themselves all the time about these things. So I wonder, am I just really weak and weird? You know, am I the,
Well,
you
I
know?
mean, you said it. It's you feel embarrassed by it, you know?
Yeah.
So it's not something that people put on the table. You asked me a question, like, I don't seem to suffer like you. No, I don't. I suffer in other ways because I'm me.
Right.
You know? I mean, because I stick to a program and because I found my formula, there are most days where I'm happy, joyous, productive. But oh boy, do I have those days where I am a toxic person in the mind And when that toxicity can't be eliminated because I'm being lazy and I don't want to meditate or go outside or exercise or do the things that I do every day to keep me on a straight track, then it bleeds into what I'm eating and how I'm behaving. And then all of a sudden it's 11, 12 a.m. and I'm just having a very bad day. And then because of all that, maybe the next day I wake up and I'm really miserable. So we all can put ourselves in those cycles of thought and behavior and feelings. I think the biggest part of your problem and the thing that you're searching for is so, I don't want to, use a negative word and have you feel any type of way, man. I love you, brother, but desperately seeking common ground with folks.
Yeah.
To understand that, hey, is it not just me? I think you got to let all that go. Every person listening to this show, every person that you see walking down the street is suffering on some level.
Right.
Is suffering on some level. And it may not be religious and philosophical and all these different deep thoughts that you have. It could be some surface level things. But at the same time, they may suffer just as deeply as you from something on the surface level, just because that's who they are at this present moment within their consciousness. So, yeah, number one, just the constant thought of you thinking you're weird and there's no one else that's going through what you're going through. There may not be specifically, but I bet you there's a whole bunch of people that battle and wrestle with these problems. In fact, Jordan Peterson, who you mentioned so many times there, had a whole tour called Those Who Wrestle with God.
Yeah.
So, there's people like us, especially people that intellectualize everything, because, when you try to intellectualize something spiritual, it's very difficult because, in my opinion, there's holes in all of it. There's always something you can go, well, and that goes back to the question that you always ask me. Well, how do you, take this from Christianity and this from Buddhism and this from Hindu and this from the yogic sciences and just integrate it in your life and just do whatever? Because that's just what works for me, man. Right. I don't care about the rest. I don't have to label anything. All I have to do is be successful in my life, be the best that I could be, because then my kids will be thriving. My wife will be thriving. My family will be thriving. And if that's the case, then I know that I'm pleasing whatever God that is out there. And to me, it's my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. And I told you how I found that Savior. It's by feel. I thought about everything. I intellectualized everything. I studied everything. But nothing makes me feel like Jesus Christ. And I'm going to stay right where I feel home. I feel at home there. Let me keep going. I got so much here. Okay, stop thinking you're weird. Don't put labels on. Don't start playing with the idea of schizophrenia or crazy or this and that, because when you start to label things, then it puts a big old excuse right there for you. Well, I'm this way. Right. And I get frustrated. I know I'm going to catch some heat here, but I think that America, especially, we have labeled all these things. Well, we developed it with all the toxic food products and stuff that we're feeding everyone. We developed the problem. Then we named the problem autism, ADHD, PTSD, and all these different things, which may be valid in certain realms. But in my opinion, as soon as we put that label on something, I'm depressed. I suffer from anxiety. I suffer from this. You put that excuse in the way now. So now, I heard a person speaking, I apologize, I can't remember exactly who it was on YouTube, where he was being labeled disabled in the school system. And they wanted to put him in all these low classes and special needs and all stuff. And his mother said, no, you're not doing that to my son. And what that mom did was enable her son, not disable him. You didn't give him the crutch. You say, okay, even if this is the case, well, guess what? You're going to work this much harder than the next person to be right where you need to be. And then those people that take those disabilities in life, flip the switch and don't give in. They don't label it. They don't suffer. They don't feel like they're a victim. Those people tend to outperform people with no disability at all, because they just refuse to accept that about themselves. So don't play with those labels. Don't condemn yourself. Don't condemn yourself. Just because you were rejected as a child, you're not going to be rejected now.
Yeah.
We've all faced some form of rejection in life. And that rejection, and then when you add that with the condemning of oneself, can really turn a person feeling alienated from society. And
Sure.
then you add on some disturbing thoughts that are coming in from the ether or wherever. They may not even be you. I mean, I think that's something to be mindful of.
Right.
And now they're feeling extra weird and extra alienated and extra separated from themselves and God and nature and everything. And then because they're being hurt, they'll create this shell around themselves. So now they're even further disconnected from God, from nature, from society, from their family, from themselves, because maybe they won't explore things about themselves that are uncomfortable, that are the root causes of these things that are causing the rejection, of people at large. You may have suffered it on some extreme level, but we've all had dealt with rejection. I've dealt with rejection so much in my past that I believe it put me on the road of drugs and drinking, because at least in those circles I could be accepted and loved. Not loved, but the perception of it, because I provided marijuana. I can get us alcohol. I know guys that'll buy a cigarette, so that led me down a very disastrous road as well.
Mm.
What happens is you come to a point where you don't give a fuck anymore. you come to a point when it causes you so much pain, trying to fit in, doing the things that you think are going to be accepted. Eventually that road's going to lead to an emptiness and an inauthenticity that's going to have you feeling anxious, depressed, worried, concerned, and all these different things, because you're not being you. You're not being the true you.
Yeah.
Now, with that, you get to a point when the pain is enough where you have to make some changes. You have to embrace the true self. And when you figure out, and I think that's moving on to the next phase of this, you say, because you have these thoughts that are so conflicting with other thoughts, that you don't know who you are almost at 51 years old. And in that, it's a worrisome thing as well. Yeah. Because without knowing exactly who you are and what your purpose is, who you're meant to be, what you're supposed to be doing, without that knowledge, it's very difficult to not care what people think. Yeah. Because you're not confident. I mean, that's part of the problem here is all these different speculations, but you're not confident in any of it. But that's okay. I think you need to learn to be okay with that. Right. But the searching and the seeking is part of who you are and who you are meant to be. Yeah. Once you stand firmly on that ground and begin walking in that truth, you'll begin to have confidence rising up within you that blocks all the hate. Boom. I don't care what y'all thinking, man. I'm doing me. I'm walking in my truth. This is what I got going on. And if you don't want nothing to do with it, then you don't have to have anything to do with it.
I feel like this is a part of that. I really do.
It is. Another step in this process for you has to be meditation. It has to be, okay, if you're not walking with Jesus right now and you're questioning some things and you're searching out different ideologies, philosophies, you need to be meditating, because the meditating is going to give you the answers. You do enough searching, seeking, reading, studying, listening to podcasts. You have to move into the action phase of this thing. You can only do so much. I believe it's the Buddha that said knowledge without action is ignorance. You can know it all, and I'm not calling you ignorant by far, my friend, by very far.
No, that's right.
But you have to move into the phase of action, because that's going to balance it out. It's going to bring the ideas that you have in your mind that you learned on paper and listening to podcasts. That action is going to make you see those ideas at a different angle. Yeah. And I applaud you for taking your long walks in nature. I believe that is ultimately beneficial for all people. In fact, I'm getting almost every single idea that I'm dropping on these podcasts. We're dropping 3 a week now, folks. And I can attribute 90% of those ideas to walks. I do walks after dinner. I hilariously call them fart walks, because that is what they're called. It's actually a walk to increase the body's ability to digest your food and absorb your nutrients. Walking, a lot of people, we feel like we want to lay down after a big meal. And I do eat a very big meal, because I start my fast very early, 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon. To make it all the way to the next day, I got to have a big meal. After that big meal, I'm going out, I'm doing these fart walks. And the ideas are just flowing. The farts aren't, every now and then. but the ideas are just absolutely blowing me away. And I also attribute that to my connection with the divine. My feet are in the grass. My sun, sun is on my skin, and it seems to be flowing from nowhere. In fact, when I'm sitting down and writing down these ideas, I'm telling you guys the truth. When you put in this work and you find your formula, your creativity will blossom, because I can't even keep up typing, and I type pretty fast because it's going. And that's I applaud you for the long walks, but something that I fell off of for a while that I've been doing here recently is working out till I sweat profusely outside. And I don't mean, it doesn't have to be intense. It doesn't have to be heart pumping, where you're breaking yourself. Just keep moving. Couple jumping jacks, it don't matter if you're doing 10 jumping jacks, 5 push-ups, 3 squats, whatever it is. But just keep doing it. Walk around. If I'm feeling tired, I walk around the yard. I do some lighter activity, but I just stay out until I start sweating. And I've been noticing that when I sweat profusely, even my stomach feels better throughout the day. I think I deal with a lot of stomach issues, and I think it's a lot of the crap that I eat and drink sometimes. But getting rid of a lot of the toxins via sweat, which is the best way to do it, more toxins and heavy metals have been shown to be released through sweat than urine or anything else that the body does. So it's very important. And like I said, once you get that action in your life, all those philosophical ideas that you have, all the knowledge that you've gained via podcasts and books, you're going to look at it from a different angle. Something's going to hit you. Like in the middle, you'll be walking, you'll do a set, and boom, you go, oh, boom, that's it. And then you couple that with the inaction, which is meditation, which is still action, because meditation can be difficult, although you're allowing yourself an opportunity to sit and do nothing. I'm not going to worry about tomorrow. I'm not going to worry about yesterday. I'm not going to see what I'm going to eat later. I'm not going to worry about all these projects. The kids are handled because I did that. I'm just going to allow myself to sit and do nothing and take some deep breaths, close my eyes. It doesn't matter what I think about. It doesn't matter what happens. I'm not looking for nothing to happen. I have no expectations. I'm just going to sit down and just do that. And boy, it's crazy how hard it is to do that. Your body resists. Your mind, nah, I don't want to do that. I don't want to give myself a breath and a much needed break. But what happens miraculously during meditation is the feed, man. I don't care what God you believe in, you get the feed. If you focus on your third eye, you do the breath, your mind will go all over the place, and just let it. Just don't chase it. Just let it. Whatever, you're doing this, you're doing that, whatever. But ultimately, 5-10 minutes in, stuff's going to start coming to you, man. Stuff that it didn't originate from within you. Maybe it was something on your mind over here, but during meditation, it's going to come to you. And it's going to solidify your beliefs so that you have more confidence, so that you're able to deal with that rejection so much more.
Sure.
I think that you don't have to feel bad about yourself because your intentions are pure. I think that whenever we do anything, we have to really focus on what our motives are, because a lot of times people can have ulterior motives. We can have reasons for doing things that we may not like to admit to everyone else. We have to very intensely analyze these things. But, I heard something in one of the Christian songs where the guy was saying burning incense and burning sage was the devil. And I just thought, no, it's not, because I'm a follower of Christ and I burn sage all the time, at least once every week or two. And I believe in power, and I believe that it's all about your intention with that. And I think that just because you're pursuing different ideas and you're questioning others, I don't think there's anything about that warrants belittling yourself or condemning yourself. In fact, I would applaud that, because the only reason why I'm so firm in my faith is because I exhausted all other variables. Sure. I looked into everything else. I talked about everything else. I practiced other things. I read different things. I took classes on certain things to make sure, because I'm like you in certain ways and certain not. But I had a hard time believing in Christianity. I really did. But once again, I'll tell you what, I still have a hard time believing in it, Tom. Yeah. But I feel it. I feel it in my heart. And that's all that matters for me. Yeah. Tensions. The last thing I want to go to, and we'll flow back to you, is this free will thing, man. I question this free will. There's not a molecule within my body that can believe that we don't have free will, man. And because, on a day-to-day basis, I think that if you are part of the program, you're buying into what they're selling you on TV, on the radio, and on the internet, social media, and all this garbage. and you're listening to your friends, and you're listening to your coworkers, and you're listening to the people at the job, and all these different things, I think that you could travel through life on autopilot without ever deeply analyzing anything. To me, that's a very slow death, and it's worse than death. I'd rather be intellectual, spiritually, and analyzing and be miserable than be ignorant and blissful. I don't choose that. I never will choose that. I want to be. That's part of who I am. It's part of how I turned off the negativity about myself. Is, I was a drug abuser because of my over analytical mind. I was constantly replaying scenarios, constantly, thinking about what people thought of me or what people thought when I said this or I did this, and torturing myself with past events. And it would just lead me to use. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't function because I was constantly obsessed with this clock. Turn. It was never anything productive. It was never anything conducive to my well-being. It was always just nonsense, monkey mind, continually batting around, stupid ideas over and over and over and over again until I just went and did drugs to shut it off.
Right.
And I can't live that way. But when I got clean off the drugs, I was able to go, hey, well, I still have this problem. I still have this overplaying everything in my mind. And that's where, the meditation and the yoga came in to slow it down. But ultimately, it never stopped. What I just do now is I understand what thoughts are beneficial to me, my family, and my well-being. I allow those to enter my body and being. And the ones that don't, which are, man, about 85% of my thoughts, I got to swipe left on. No, not today, Satan. Because I'm still trapped in that negative self-talk, judgmental of others, quick to frustrate and anger. I still deal with all of that. In fact, it's a form of my suffering, but the prayer, the yoga, the meditation, it all alleviates it to some degree. But because I'm doing all this, man, I couldn't imagine for 1 second that I can't make my own decision, because I plot and plan over these decisions like what I was saying, over and over, analytical to be successful, to make the right choice. I don't take it too far where I'm endangering indecision, because that's not something that I suffer from. I'm going to pull the trigger on something, and it's either going to go or it's going to flunk. I'm going to figure it out. But I almost have changed my mind on things like that. And of course, my conversation with my wife always comes into play. And with certain decisions, even conversations with my mom and my children, because they're part of the larger group. So even their feedback comes into these decisions to some degree. And then my wife's obviously to a higher degree, as much as mine. And then we go from there. And, I can't believe that I don't make my own decisions. I just can't believe it. I can't believe that we don't have the ability to change our mind at the last minute and be spontaneous.